everyone, and welcome to the session called the R's of the Circular Revolution. Now, there are so many different R's involved in this. I'm sure you all know the words reduce, reuse, recycle. We can think of a bunch of others: refuse, rethink, repair. And then I'd like all of you to keep all those words in mind as we get on with this session this afternoon. Many of you represent businesses wanting to source new materials. Others are startuppers or students looking for new ideas, new business ideas. And of course, each and every one of us are consumers. So this afternoon, we're not going to talk about the concepts or the philosophy as much as we're going to talk about the concrete solutions that my panelists are all going to bring to us. As always, the session is divided into three. First, I'll be joined by the CEO of CITEO, which is the French leader in recycling. Then we'll have a panel discussion with three representatives of some of the most innovative ideas to reduce our carbon footprint. And last but not least, I will be welcoming the CEO of Notpla, which is a company that's gone a step further by making packaging sustainable. So that will be the menu for this afternoon. First, let's welcome CITEO's CEO, Hornain, to the stage. So, Jean, in just a few sentences, can you explain to us what is CITEO and what does it do?
Yes, CITEO is a company which was created about 30 years ago by consumer and product and distribution companies to reduce the environmental impact of their packaging and paper. And this under the umbrella of what we call extended producer responsibility, which means that companies in France and now over Europe have the responsibility, when they sell a product with a package, the responsibility of the end of the life of this packaging. And then each time they sell a product, they pay a fee, depending on the materials. We have glass, steel, aluminum, cardboard, plastic, paper. And with this fee, about, in France, 30,000 companies, including the biggest consumer companies, pay 900 million euros each year to develop eco-design programs to help packaging to be more recyclable, to mobilize the French people to help them put their packaging in the right bin, and then to pay the municipalities to have collection bins, containers in the street, in your home, so that everything is collected and goes to recycling, which means that, in a few words, today in France, 70%, 70, of household packaging is recycled and 60% of paper.
That is a lot of work for you there, Jean. You're a major player in the recycling industry here in France. But before we get into that, let's start with the basics. Why is plastic packaging still such a big issue, and what's being done to remedy this?
Well, plastic overall is an issue because plastic production in the world is rising. You're seated on plastic chairs, and it's in the planes, in the cars. And it's true, it's an issue for packaging because packaging is about 40% of plastic production in the world, which is a lot. And the issue of plastic is that we have to do what we did for glass, what we did for steel, for cardboard, for paper. The main issue is that the recycling rate of plastic packaging is only 30%, 30, where overall packaging is 70%. So it's not recycled enough. And what do we do for that? We work with companies on eco-design programs to have all plastic, because you have many plastic resins, to have them all recycled. And you also have new technologies, new recycling technologies coming up to, to put the circle on its feet. Yeah. The other big issue with plastic, beside recycling, is littering. Is the fact that plastic, and especially plastic packaging in the world, ends up many times on the floors, in the streets, in the nature. And about 8 million tons of plastic overall ends up in the seas, in the oceans every year. And this before was on the land. 80% of it was on the land before. So that's why we are really promoting systems like we did in France, in Germany, in Europe. It's called extended producer responsibility, which brings financing, structural, long-term financing to waste collection and treatment so that this doesn't exist.
So you're making companies pay for what they're doing?
They actually pay. They bear a responsibility. Some of them here in France pay tens of millions of euros each year. But you also have the small ones paying like 100 euro per year to bear this responsibility. And that's a good mean, you know, to involve the companies in the eco-design and in the treatment of what they put on the market. And it's not magical, but it's efficient.
Indeed. A key part of the recycling process, though, is that individual act of putting your recyclable products in different bins. If numbers do show that the French are doing this more and more, we're still not completely there. What are some of the difficulties in making that gesture become systematic for individuals?
It's true that today, as far as France is concerned, about 90% of them say that they sort their packaging and paper. Well, it's, you know, they say they do it, but we have to believe them. But then one only out of two, 50%, is doing it on a daily basis and wherever I am, you know, in the kitchen, in the bathroom, or in the street. And it's true that that's not enough. And what we are doing is, first of all, running campaigns to say, guys, this is very important for the planet, although it's a very small gesture on a daily basis. And the second is work with municipalities, because and especially in the cities, because the cities are the places where the consumption is the highest and where sorting is the lowest. And we need to find bins and way to sort, you know, in the streets. Where you started with the Ville de Paris, we do it in Marseille, on the beaches, and everywhere we have to be able to do it. And also, I will come back maybe later, educational programs.
Yes, we'll talk about that a bit later. It's interesting, you just said, so people who live in big cities, they recycle less than people in the countryside, even though they have more access to bins.
In fact, overall in France, one habitant will sort 70 kilos of packaging and paper, 70, okay? If you're going to Bretagne or to Vendée or to Alsace, this 70 is becoming 100, 110, 120. Very good. If you're coming to cities, especially our big cities like Paris and Marseille, this 70 kilos is becoming 40 kilo or less. So that's an issue. You know, smart cities, and also the fact that it's the ways of consumption are different in the cities. You know, with a lot of vente à distance. Help me. Vente à distance.
Online shopping?
Online shopping. Online, you know.
Takeouts. Yes, we do. Consume in different ways in big cities. Do you think that there's also a lack of trust in the recycling system? Do you think people think, oh, well, what's the point if I do this? Where's it going to end up anyway?
It is true. It is true there is a lack of trust. Well, maybe I could say, maybe in France, we are suspicious people overall, or skeptical people overall. Maybe, and especially, yes, I put my packaging in the yellow bin. Where is it going? Is it going to recycling? Is it going everywhere? And on TV, I've seen that there was a bottle on the beach somewhere, so I don't trust those guys who are doing this. It's an issue. Well, I can tell you that, and we try to convince them. Sometimes we have visits in sorting centers so that you can see what happens, behind. Because it's true that in France and in Europe, if you put your packaging in the bin, it's going to recycling. It's not going to be landfilled or everywhere. But the issue is here. And what we are doing also with the CITEO is to simplify the gesture, because Okay, today I can sort my bottles, but not the films or not the trays. And you know, the lack of trust comes with the fact that it's not simple enough.
Yeah.
So we are doing the simplification, modernization of the sorting centers so that we can say by 2023 to everyone, put all your packaging and paper in the yellow bin, it will be recycled. And then we have to develop the recycling technologies and the recycling plants that will handle all this. So it's, you know, it's a chain.
It is a complex system that you're trying to
It is.
simplify. We will be getting back to that in a bit. You mentioned earlier that CITEO does educational efforts, an educational poll. Tell us some of the projects you have ongoing about training future generations.
What we run is we run programs with the schools, primary schools most of the time. We reach about 1.5 million pupils each year with eco-citizenship programs. The issue for us overall is that we have to eco-design our lives. And this starts with our children. So we do this, we have all these programs. We would like to do more, but that we start in the school and for little kids. And then what we also do is we run other programs with organizations. One of them is Seventh Continent, Expedition Seventh Continent, which, you know, an organization which fights against pollution in the seas and the oceans. And what we do with them is educational tours with a boat. You know, every summer or in the spring, today they are in the Garonne. We have this guy, who's great, Patrick Dexon, who's explaining to all these pupils why we should take care of our littering overall, why we should sort our packaging and paper, because that's the main barrier against plastic pollution. We have to take care of plastics. We can say plastic is the issue, but in fact, unless we can, you know, erase every plastic on the earth, we have to handle this material. We can do it. Let's do it now, because change now.
Change now, indeed. Another exciting thing that CITEO does is support and encourage new talent. That I'm talking about innovators and startups, of course. What are some of the projects you're particularly enthusiastic about?
Yes, we run many R&D and innovation programs. Actually, we spend more than 10 million euros on R&D each year on eco-design programs, material programs, substitution programs. And we have our circular challenge, the CITEO Circular Challenge, which is our accelerator for startups. And you will see on our stand, if you visit our stand, you will see some of them. Maybe I can, you know, give you two examples. The first one is how to replace plastic by paper, you know, fiber solutions. And it's really coming up. And there is one startup which is called Papcop who is doing this. And we also have programs with the technology centers in Grenoble for that, to develop and to substitute plastic by fiber and cellulose solution, which is a good recycling solution. Another one is IDS Group, whose company works on traceability, because we need to trace the material. Yeah. We need to trace the content, because consumers ask for it, but we also need to trace the packaging, the material. Where does it come from? Is it recycled? And then where does it end? So that's another innovation. We are very keen on it and working on it.
Things to look out for then. Let's move on to something that is not the sexiest of innovations, but it is really, really important. It's an important part of recycling. You touched upon it earlier. It's standardization. CITEO is working on standardizing bins across France. When do you see that happening? What are your goals on that?
2023. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's true. No, it's true. It's a headache. A lot of people, including ourselves, you know, traveling throughout France, saying, "Okay, I went to Haute-Savoie. I saw this way. I came back home, and it's different." And this leads to lack of trust in the system. And everything will be simplified by 2023. Every packaging and paper in the container, I should say in the yellow container, there will still be something which will not be solved by 2023, is that the color of the bins will remain sometimes a little bit different. We're working on it with the municipalities because it's their choice. We'll get to it, I think.
Okay, so the idea is, in the end, to have the same color everywhere.
Very simple. It has to be simple.
It has to be simple if you want everyone to do it as much as they can. Where are we though? Where are we at for the EU level? Where are we at on that? Because different countries, even in France, you have different countries, different colors. What is it like for Europe?
Well, what is common in Europe is that the system of extended producer responsibility, making the FMCG companies and distribution companies responsible for the packaging, which came from France and Germany, we were the pioneers, is really spreading throughout Europe. So that's one thing which is common in Europe, that system making companies responsible of eco-design, collection, and recycling of their packaging is spreading out. Then you're right, as far as the systems and the colors, it's different. It's different between France and Germany and Italy, and there is no real harmonization. What is happening at the moment is that the EU and the Commission, European Commission, has really taken on this subject to try to set standards, eco-design standards, eco-modulation standards. I don't know if we will, come to a real total harmonization, but it's really coming up, and we are, as the biggest in Europe, working with the Commission, try to help them set the framework so that we can harmonize at the maximum what we're doing in Europe.
Okay, so what would the end goal be for that then? The same type of bins, the same labeling, where it ends up?
Yeah, labeling is an issue because one product is sold in France, in Italy, in Germany, the same way. Donc, labeling is one of the main things that should be harmonized, and again, it's on its way. It's not done, but it's on its way.
Very interesting. CITEO is, of course, celebrating 30 years, which is a major milestone. What's next for your company? What's the big goal you hope to achieve in the next, 5 years, say?
It's true, we've come a long way in 30 years, which I like to also remind that, because I see what's next, but we have to remind that what we've built, I wasn't there. So this system, EPR, has built recycling industry, sorting gesture, employment, and 70% of household packaging actually recycled. So that's what we've done. So that's a good thing. Now, the next step is to find 100% solution, which means no packaging or no paper sold in France without a solution. The solution is that no packaging, if we can. The second solution is that reusable packaging, if it's possible, if it's and it makes sense, or recyclable and recycled packaging. 100% solution. That's where we have to go, but we do not have 30 years.
Yeah.
We have a shorter time.
It is, time is of the essence. It is getting more and more urgent. We do have a couple more minutes left now. Jean, if you just mentioned reusables and recyclables, and you want, ideally, no packaging in the first place. What about refillables or any kind of deposit systems? How do you feel about that?
It's one way. Deposit systems is a way to stimulate the sorting gesture. Deposit is the fact when you buy your can, you're going to pay 10 cents or 15 cents more, and those 10 cents or 15 cents will be paid you back when you take it back to the shop. And it's true that collection rates are really high because there is a strong incentive. So there is a discussion here in France to set up this system. I don't know the outcome. It exists in Germany and in other countries, and it's true that incentives for the people is a way to leverage collection. And it's a pity to see a can which is aluminium, especially in this period, in the waste. It's aluminium. It has value. Virgin aluminium, it's bauxite, it's energy. It doesn't make sense. We have to recycle, so we have to collect it, and it's out there.
And finally, Jean, if you could share with us, your vision, your personal vision for the recycling industry for the years to come.
That's a question.
Yeah.
I should say maybe that my vision is that one day it will not exist anymore. It's like digital. We had digital departments, digital guys, digital, but today there is no more digital because everything is digital.
Yes.
One day everything will be designed or eco-designed so that you don't need a recycling industry. This topic will be taken on from the very beginning in the companies and also in our lives. So maybe it will have disappeared.
Well, that's a fantastic note to end on. Thank you so much, Jean of CITEO, and congratulations again on the 30 years of your company.
Thank you, Yena. Thank you.
Next, we can welcome to the stage our panel speakers. They're going to bring us some innovative solutions, some of the things that Jean actually was talking about just a little earlier. Paul, Guinard, Yuri, Mytko, and Enrica can join me now on stage. Wherever you want. Come closer, come closer. So from orange peels to old football shirts to steel byproducts, we will now be discovering how waste can be transformed and used into new products. So Paul Guinard is from Nolt, Enrica from Orange Fiber, and Yuri Mytko is from CarbiCrete. I'm going to start with Yuri first. You're the CMO of a company that has developed a cement-free, carbon-negative concrete. I don't know if you guys know this, but 8% of the world's CO2 emissions actually comes from cement production. So Yuri, what does your innovation do that is different?
Thanks, Yena. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible statistic, right? 8% of the world's GHG emissions. Carbon emissions that come from cement production are a massive, massive issue. And the reason it's such a big problem is that cement has always been the key ingredient in the production of concrete, which is the most abundant substance on the planet after water. And what CarbiCrete does is, well, we've devised a way to make concrete without using cement. We use absolutely no cement in our process. What we do is we replace cement in the process with a byproduct of the steel making process, which is steel slag. So it's an industrial waste byproduct. It often goes to landfill. So in effect, what we're doing is we're taking a material that the production of which is highly pollutant, and we're replacing it with one that otherwise would go into a landfill. And what that means is, I've lost my train of thought.
So your creation, the CarbiCrete,
Yeah.
it's not using that very polluting substance. You've replaced it with a steel byproduct. How do you make sure it's just as safe, and when you build things with it?
Well, so let me just get back to how we make it, because the other key piece to how CarbiCrete is made is that rather than using cement, we use steel slag. But when you make concrete, you need to cure it in order for it to have any kind of strength. In a cement-based process, the concrete is cured using heat or steam. What we do is we take freshly molded concrete, so you can imagine pavers, construction blocks, retaining walls, all of those products that are made in a factory, and we put them in an absorption chamber and we inject carbon dioxide into them. And we cure it with carbon dioxide. So in addition to avoiding the emissions that come with cement production, we're also sequestering carbon dioxide directly into the concrete. And that's how you have a carbon negative product in the end.
Wow. Very, very creative. An innovation that was made, I believe, in Canada.
That's right. It's based on technology that was developed at McGill University in Montreal.
University, indeed. Enrica, Orange Fiber, your company, it's a made-in-Europe solution to transforming food waste into fabric. Tell us a bit more about that.
Exactly. We start from whatever is left after orange juice, And this means pretty much half of the weight of the original orange. And we extract a cellulose from that is up to be transformed into fiber for textile use. So we partner with Lenzing, it's an Austrian company, to make a Tencel branded fiber. And then we coordinate the supply chain to make yarn and fabrics just to satisfy every possible need of brands.
All right, and that's something you guys can also see at the exposition part of ChangeNOW. Paul, you two work in textiles, this time from waste in the Mediterranean into sportswear. Tell us about the process.
Yeah, we are making sports garments for teams. So we are a teamwear brand, and we are working with a company called CITEO, and they do work with fishermen mostly in the Mediterranean Sea. So what we do is we are buying the yarn from them, and the yarn is made of 85 to 90% of plastic waste and 10 to 15% of plastic waste coming straight from the ocean. So we are buying the yarn there, making sports jersey, shorts, tracksuit out of that fabric, and we are selling these to teams, mostly teams in France, but now also in Europe. The whole idea of working with teams is first you have the traceability because you know where you put your product, and at the end of the day when the team is changing the logo, the sponsors, you take back the product and you transform them into another product. In our case, we do cones, like the small cones and cup you can see on sports field when you go training. So the whole idea of Nolt is we go from plastic waste from the ocean, we make jersey for teams, affordable price, then every kid can play football, rugby with it. At the end of the season, or sometime 2 seasons, we take it back, we transform into plastic product for the same teams, and the same kids will play the same sports, but with a plastic product made out of the jersey from last year.
A very circular
yeah,
process.
we try to.
All three of you transform waste. I'm going to ask all three of you the same question, starting with Yuri. How available is that steel byproduct you're talking about? Does it limit your capacity to do business?
I guess the answer to the question is sort of yes and no. It is a limiting factor in that steel slag, there's not an endless supply of it, but it's tied to the production of steel, which continues to be produced at a very high rate. So as long as steel is being produced, there's going to be steel slag produced. And at the moment, there's about 250 million tons of steel slag produced on an annual basis, which is substantial. But then in addition to that, there are piles and piles of this stuff that's been accumulating for the last 100 years because there's effectively no application for the material. It's sometimes used in roadbeds, but not frequently. It often goes to landfill or it just sits there on a steel mill site.
Wow, so you are working to make sure that gets a second life. How about you, Enrica? You work in Europe because you work in countries that have a lot of oranges.
Yeah, we started from Italy and Sicily in particular, and according to an estimate, every year 700,000 tons of byproducts are available, but we also have extended our patent in countries where the juice is produced, so Brazil, Mexico, United States, with the idea in the future of replicating the model where the actual waste is. So for us, it's not a limiting condition. Sometimes season might be, so we need to dry the peel to have a continuity of production. But apart from that, there's not a scarcity problem at all.
Okay, seasonal but it's still very abundant. How about you?
My number is actually pretty much the same as yours, 200 million, but for me it's not steel, it's actually plastic waste in the ocean. So there's no issue to find plastic waste in the ocean, sadly. So on this side of having the raw material to make the jersey is fine. The challenge is the price. To make it affordable to teams, we have to rethink the model. So we have to go direct to consumer. We have to work on low margin, volume driven. The challenge is not to find the product, but is to make it affordable. And I think that's the main challenge here is we want to recycle as much as possible of plastic waste. In our case, in 2 years, we recycled 50,000 bottles of plastic out of the ocean. It's a cool and sexy number, but it's nothing. That's pretty much Stade de France, to say, like for Parisian people, it's nothing. When you see the number of football pitch in the world, There's millions of plastic waste that we want to transform in garments for teams. So we are just starting, and we have to keep pushing.
You bring up an interesting point there about price and you competing with other brands who have different resources, have different ways of production. How do you compete? I don't know, with those big sporting brands.
That's a challenge. The whole idea is to be perceived as a brand, sports brand, a cool sports brand, not a sustainable brand. So from the very beginning at Nolt, we try to make sexy design for teams, tailor-made, on a good price, because we work on our website mostly on direct-to-consumer. And when we go through the distribution, like Decathlon, to say the least, the biggest player we work with Decathlon, we have like a deal that they understand us. So they kind of like work on our direction to make it possible to go on a larger scale. For the cup, the cones that we are making out of old jersey, they've already sent us an order, even though the cups are not even, I mean, they are ready, but not ready to go production. We are in the tasting phase because they believe on pushing us to go this direction. So, okay, Puma, Nike, those guys is a big challenge.
Yeah.
But it's a big cake, and we still believe that there's a space, if you're affordable, there's a space to go to a small amateur team all across the country, all across Europe, with our story. If the product is good quality, is good priced, and is accessible to everybody.
You go straight to the consumer, but Enrica, you work a lot with businesses and other brands. How does that work?
You mean price-wise?
Yes.
Or, yeah. Well, we are definitely currently at a higher price of what compared to other products, but also quite close to silk. So depending on the products we offer, we might be perceived more expensive or less expensive. But what we are trying to do is to bring the quality back at the center of the discussion. So we want to find a good compromise that will come with the scale of the production in terms of pricing, but currently is also a way to reaffirm that what goes into producing a material actually costs a lot of money and hour of work. So it actually has an impact on pricing. So we work mainly with brands who are open to pay that extra price because they believe in the values we are pushing.
So the true price, if you will, of textiles. What about you, Yuri? Like, how do you compete with, what is the price point of CarbiCrete compared to concrete?
Well, so, I think an important thing to understand is that we're a technology company, so ultimately we license our technology to concrete makers. We don't actually produce concrete ourselves, though we do it on a small scale in our R&D lab. But a key part of our value proposition to concrete makers, who are ultimately our customers, is lower material costs. Cement costs are rising for a variety of reasons, one being carbon taxation being adopted more widely and across more jurisdictions. And so using a waste byproduct that has very little application, that delta just keeps increasing. So it's a key part of our value prop is lower material costs, 10 to 20%.
Making it attractive. Yuri, when will we be able to see CarbiCrete blocks in our cities?
Soon, very soon. We have a pilot plant in Canada where we're about to commence operations on our second phase, which is our commercial phase. So in the coming months, we'll have blocks coming off the press, and before the end of the year, we'll have commercially available product in Canada. That's through one producer. The idea is that by some point next year, we'll have a number of other producers sign up, but we're actually developing differentiated products for a variety of different Canadian-based concrete makers right now. And then we're also hoping to be piloting in Europe next year with a view to having commercial sales in Europe in 2024.
Something to look out for. Enrica, how are you ensuring that orange fiber grows, but at a sustainable pace, because that is at the heart of what you do?
Well, we try really to balance the ambition of the company, but also of investor, for instance, with the real need of fabrics and the feedback we get from brands. So we try to have slow growth, which is sustainable and still keeps the value of the fabric at a point where it's all made in Europe and it's all made in respect of nature with certified and traced supplier. So the growth has to be in some form controlled.
And Paul, of course, let's go back to your company's name, Nolt. It does stand for nothing is lost. How are you taking things further? You already explained that, you know, the plastic waste from the Mediterranean becomes sports clothes, becomes cones. What's that extra mile you're going to ensure that it really stays 100% circular?
The first thing first, I think, to go a bit further is to get those cones on the market.
Yeah.
We're very close now. It's been the codes are there. It looks good. So in the coming months, it will be on the market. And the next step for us is to launch a rental program. We strongly believe in a rental system. In the sports industry, it goes a lot through hard goods, like skis. When you go skiing, you can rent your skis. Not really into soft goods. And we do have a lot of teams which are buying a football jersey for one game a year, which are actually asking us to buy a 100% sustainable running jersey, but for one marathon in Paris, just to get something for them. So, so having this question all the time push us. It's all like that, actually. It goes from them to us, push us to start that. So we basically work now on the IT system to make it possible. But in the coming weeks, we will be able to offer a rental program because we strongly believe that the next step further is to go through less production and like pushing the life cycle of our own product. At the end of the day, I will still take them and recycle them into cones, cup, football stadium seats. Maybe with you, we can do a stadium together. But I mean, from now on, we really want to push rental. I don't even know it's going to work. Maybe it's going to be a big fail. But let's try. Let's see how it goes. Let's do a business case in reality. And let's see if Puma and Nike do it as well. And then it starts big.
Well, reusing is a very important part of keeping that life cycle going. But wouldn't a massive challenge for that be hygiene? How would you ensure that the clothes are clean?
The refit part, more than the hygiene part, the refit part, when you take back the jersey with holes and stuff like that, will be the most challenging part. There is more and more companies which are working into this. A cool outdoor brand called Picture Organic Clothing, they are starting to do rental of ski jackets. And when you take back the ski jacket, sometimes you go through the forest and there's some holes. And they are working with some small company around Annecy, so in Haute-Savoie, to refix it, to clean it. So our aim is to find the same companies in our area, south of France, or to create them, to create this environment. But it's a good question. I don't have I don't have a path to follow. Like I have to create, so I have to find the players to help me to create them. It's never, it's quite busy right now.
Yes, there's a new ecosystem you have to construct yourself. Recycling waste is a key part of why you're all here today. That's what really links all of you. But we did talk about it a bit earlier, but quality is also a big important part of what each of you do. How about we start first with Yuri? How do you ensure that it really is, your creation is up to standard, is what new cities and municipalities can trust in?
Well, I mean, in our instance, literally every difference is a positive one. I mean, we have the avoidance of emissions and the removal of carbon dioxide, which makes the product more sustainable versus a cement-based alternative. Quicker curing time. Our process yields full-strength concrete in 24 hours as opposed to 28 days, which is quite a difference. So if inventory and space is an issue for a concrete maker, then that's an advantage. The lower material cost I mentioned earlier, 10 to 20%, steel slag versus cement. We also have the ability to dial up the compressive strength of the product by about 30% vis-a-vis a cement-based product. And then in terms of all the other metrics and all the other standards and requirements they need to be met, we either meet or exceed them as far as the technical requirements go.
Some very, very interesting statistics there. How about you, Enrica? What are you thinking about quality? We touched upon it a bit earlier. So you're aiming at more high-end products and brands.
Yes, to start with, but then we also want to open up, and our way to ensure quality is really to select the supplier and the producer we work with. So differentiating the products depending on the weavers and depending on the spinner as well, and the blend that we can offer on the market. So it's not just orange fiber, but it may be orange fiber with certified cotton or certified silk. So there's a range of products that we can offer. And another thing we are working on is digital passports. So just to reconnect on what was said before, the idea of having the possibility to communicate with the final clients and let them know what's the best way to wash the clothes or to mend the clothes, or maybe ensure it's a real orange fiber when they want to sell in secondhand. So trying to push the use of the garment as much as possible.
And you have a sample, if you want to show the audience. It's a sample of the...
But they can come to to the stand.
You can come to the stand that is
which
behind.
will be easier. But these are just made of orange fiber. And so they contain the exclusive fiber with oranges and wood pulp.
So just 100% fiber, because you can also mix it with other materials.
Yeah, we have at the stand options with certified silk and certified cotton as well.
No, very interesting. And what about you, Paul? Tell us about, you mentioned earlier that you also wanted to be not just labeled as a sustainable brand, but a sports brand avant tout, before anything. You just wanted to be known as that. What does that mean? What's your philosophy behind that?
After talking with, at the beginning of the project 2 years ago, we talked with many teams before starting the brand, football team, rugby teams, and most of them told us how Nike is powerful to attract young football players to their team. Because Nike has a brand image which is very, very strong, because big players are wearing Nike, and you can't fight, I can fight on that, it's impossible. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo is very expensive, so not for now. So the whole idea behind that is, if you want to work with those teams, the brand has to be sexy. Because if the young players start to think Nolt is making a good product, good quality and performance-oriented product, and it looks actually great, there is a more chance for me to talk to them. And if Nolt is talking to them, we do this kind of education thing. Because football team, I'm talking a lot about football because it's our biggest sport in France. And the football team has also a big education process, mostly onto integration and also education on a daily basis. The environmental part has been always on the side. So building up a cool and a sexy brand, that's what we're trying to do with Nolt, is also to bring this topic, which is not sometimes so sexy, especially for a 10-year-old football player, into the discussion. And then they kind of know they wear a sustainable jersey. Sometimes they don't know. But what they know is, at the end of the season, they put the jersey in a big bin, and this jersey will make the cone of the next season. So that's the whole idea. If you manage to make your brand sexy enough that young kids like it, you kind of manage to make sustainability projects sexy. And if you want to talk to them, it has to go through this. You have to talk on TikTok. You have to go there. Because if you only stay like, I'm sustainable, that's fine, and I'm doing things better than you, it's like, it's not the idea. The idea is, there is our path. And if Puma wants to make 100% recycled jersey in Europe, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's enough of the pie for everyone, I guess.
No.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but I do want to end by asking all three of you some of the biggest challenges you faced as a small company when you started, and now you're at different stages of marketing and you know, let's start with Yuri.
Sure. I mean, I think for us, the biggest challenge was just a lack of education in terms of how bad cement is for the environment. And you know, the first set of concrete makers we went and spoke to, they had no idea. But a lot of that work has been done for us over the course of the last years. We started the company in 2016. Now, I mean, you can't pick up a newspaper or open a news site without reading about where carbon emissions are coming from. So that's made things a lot easier over the course of the last couple of years. It was a real challenge at the beginning.
Interesting. How about you, Paul?
The biggest challenge? There were a few. I think the first was to build a sports brand, because sports brand, especially in teamwear, is only managed by a few brands. The whole landscape, and I think we all know they're the biggest brand. To get there, that was the biggest challenge, and it's still a big challenge to be to be a proper sports brand. Even if the product is good, we don't have the marketing budget to get the credibility. So this kind of event helps for the brand, helps for the credibility of our message. But at the end of the day, we need to sign more professional team. We're very happy that we have a few brands signed for the next season, but we need to push this. It's still a long way. Still a long way.
Still a long way to go. How about you, Enrica?
Well, the company was founded in 2014, so there has been a lot of ups and downs. I think in the very beginning, most of the problems were related to fundraising, but also finding partners and resources, like human resources, because we are working in an industry that is not present in Italy since 20 years. So we looked for people and specialists all over Europe. We mostly work with Austria, but also Finland and Sweden. So that was quite a challenge. And also to demonstrate brands that that was feasible and that was cool. So bring in the early adopter. Whereas now, almost 10 years later, I think that competition and being at scale is the next big challenge, because a lot of companies are investing and growing in that space, which is absolutely positive, because it means that we are all going in the same direction and sharing the same values, but still, I mean, I can see that coming.
Yeah, it is positive, even though you have more competition. I think I saw Hermes uses mushrooms instead of leather to make vegan stuff. Like food waste in textiles is becoming more and more a space, I guess. I mean, it's exciting for you, no?
Yeah, definitely exciting. And but even like cotton recycle or polyester recycle, there's a lot in the industry. So I think it's really becoming more. Also, like the brands are more open to do this kind of project because they realize it brings value to them. And so I think it's positive in general, but for me as a CEO, the next big thing will be to raise a few millions and build a bigger plant.
Scale it up. Thank you so much. Thank you, all three of you. It was very interesting to talk about how you all managed to get waste and make it into a new product, giving second life to a lot of our trash, wherever it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now it's time for our final part of this session. I will welcome Pierre Paslier to the stage. Hello. Pierre is the co-founder of Notpla, which is a startup that is revolutionizing the way we think of packaging. Basically, there's no more plastic in Notpla. And Pierre, what is the philosophy behind your company?
So we believe that we can really turn to nature to find a number of solutions. In our case, we have a lot of excitement around seaweed. We think that seaweed can definitely help us to tackle a lot of our single-use plastic in a number of applications. Especially, there's a lot of cases where we actually use plastic in applications where the consumption is very short, and we literally pick the most indestructible material we have at hand. So this big kind of like mismatch of application of the material is where natural solutions can help us like with that. And I think that seaweed is certainly one of those materials that just should be on the map of packaging. Some of the seaweed that we use in our products grow up to 1 meter per day. It's one of the fastest growing organisms on the planet. On top of that, it doesn't require fresh water or fertilizer. It actually sequesters carbon as it grows. It doesn't compete with food crops. So there's lots of reasons why we should be looking more precisely at like how we can use some of those materials instead of like petrochemicals that are coming from fossil fuels, because they can really be a sustainable solution.
Well, you were just telling us there how useful seaweed can be. So where do you get it from? Is it farmed? Like, where is it from?
So it's quite interesting because actually seaweed has always been part of like the human diet, and it's only quite recently that in the kind of like Western world we've stopped eating seaweed. But like food has been one of the biggest kind of like reasons why we've looked into seaweed, and the places where seaweed is still a big part of the diet, like Southeast Asia, Japan, Korea, they have like invested heavily for the past kind of like few decades in aquaculture, because it just makes sense that they are kind of like producing and consuming a lot of seaweed. In Europe, we are still a little bit at the Stone Age. We just kind of like harvest it on the beach because we haven't really kind of like got around kind of like building a more kind of like advanced system. And also because it's quite abundant, so we don't really have to go and kind of like produce so much more. But like the wonderful thing about seaweed is that when you actually kind of like cultivate it, when you create seaweed farms and kind of like cultures, you actually can create a very regenerative system where you bring back fisheries and gasteropods that were not previously in this kind of like part of the sea. So there's a huge kind of like opportunity to both create some new sustainable materials, act on biodiversity, sequesters carbon. And unfortunately, in Europe, we still have like a long way to go to make the legislation easier for getting the kind of like the permits to set up seaweed farms. But we're getting there. There's a big growth in seaweed farming in Europe.
No, it's super interesting because we started this session talking about really the importance of recycling plastic, and now we're talking to you about how we might not even need plastic at all by using seaweed. One of your most famous products, I don't know if you guys have seen it, are those little capsules full of liquids that were used at the London Marathon, for example, and even at festivals. Can you tell us about that, or if you...
Yeah, so we actually started in our kitchen with my co-founder. We wanted to create a man-made fruit, something that would feel a little bit more like a tomato or kind of like a berry, and we wanted to use natural materials. So we looked at lots of different things, from tapioca seeds to starch, eventually stumbled upon these seaweed extracts that have been used in the food industry. They've also been used for making fake caviar. If you've ever had these like tiny kind of like fish balls that like you can have as like a cheap replacement for the real stuff. And actually, this is made from seaweed. It's been invented in the 40s by Unilever, used for a lot of kind of like food kind of like technologies in the like food industry. And we kind of took this and made like those kind of like little spheres bigger and bigger until the point that we actually had like something that was about the size of a tomato. And they look like a transparent bubble. It's kind of a weird looking thing. And because it's made from these seaweed extracts that are edible, you can eat the packaging. So we created these little kind of like doughs for places of instant consumption. You mentioned the London Marathon. We do a lot of races. We also do a lot of cocktails for like festivals. And the idea is that if you want, you can literally like put the whole thing in your mouth and like it's going to explode, and then you can eat the whole thing. And the fact that you can eat it demonstrates the fact that it is kind of like really easy on nature. If you can eat it, nature can eat it. Yeah, we think that like it's a bit more like a fruit than an industrial container. It's definitely something that is kind of like for a specific set of applications, quick consumption cycles, but it can already really have an impact on those types of applications. And it kind of like was our first product that like taught us a lot about seaweed, and then from there we expanded into another range of products.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it really went quite viral, those images we all saw at the London Marathon of people handing out these tiny sachets and the runners just gobbing them up. But it's not just capsules that you make. You also branched out into a lot of takeout items, boxes, paper, and film. Can you tell us about your latest innovations?
Yeah, so I think we realized that seaweed had a lot of opportunities to replace plastic or synthetics in the packaging industry. So we really built Notpla as like a portfolio of different solutions that can help brands to reduce their use of plastic. One of the applications, I'm actually quite excited because this takeaway packaging was actually used yesterday in the stadium in Seville for the UEFA final.
Oh, wow.
All of the kind of like chip scoops and hot dog trays and burger boxes were made with our packaging. Typically, like when you have a takeaway kind of like box that looks like it's made from cardboard, there is always either a thin layer of plastic on the inside, because otherwise the cardboard just kind of like falls apart, or it's full of Teflon-like chemicals like PFAS that really kind of like we shouldn't be using in food containers in the first place. But that's a bit the state of play. And so what we do is that we apply a thin layer of seaweed onto cardboard so that it resists the grease and the water that is like contained in the food. And at the end of the day, that makes it completely like natural, naturally biodegradable without needing industrial composting or all of those kind of like really complex solutions that the first generation of bioplastics have kind of like required to have a true chance of biodegradation. And even recyclable, like this is easy to repulp and can be used for another kind of like cardboard product.
And the seaweed, whether it's the capsules or the film coating inside those takeout boxes, what happens to it when you throw it away?
So that's one of the wonderful things with seaweed, is that actually seaweed has been around for 3.5 billion years. So nature really knows how to deal with that stuff. And so wherever it ends up, there is natural bacteria that know just exactly how to break down this into the next nutrients for the next plant or the next seaweed. And that's one of the values of Notpla. We believe nature knows best. So by only using the natural materials that already are abundant in nature, we never take the risk of introducing something that's going to create a long-lasting waste. And one of the really exciting things is that the European Union has taken quite a strong stance recently with the Single-Use Plastic Directive that for the first time defines quite specifically what is a plastic and what isn't a plastic. And there's essentially two conditions to not be a plastic. You need to have like a material that is naturally abundant in the environment. And the second one is that it's not chemically modified. And so a lot of those kind of like first generation bioplastics like PLA, PHA, PHB, they are considered a plastic. And when you look at just natural like extracts from seaweed, they are really a natural polymer, and they are not a plastic. So all of these things, they help us to really make the difference between the stuff that you kind of have an understanding of something that's going to, like, you leave it for too long, it's going to grow mold and nature's going to take it back. And like bioplastic that looks exactly like plastic, and you really doubt that they're going to kind of like go well at the end in nature. We really want to be on the part of like nature where there's not going to be any risk of creating a long-lasting waste.
And I guess your capsules are the best example because you can eat them
Exactly.
afterwards. So it's definitely okay for the human body. It's okay for everything else. You mentioned there that this was used at the UEFA at a match in Seville yesterday. But can small businesses afford your products as well?
Yeah, so actually, I mean, it's always easier to talk about like the big partnerships with the like Just Eat or Kraft Heinz, but like obviously we love to work with smaller businesses because they're faster. Like very often, it's just kind of like less inertia to get things going. Obviously, it is also kind of like sometimes a little bit harder because we are dealing with very innovative technologies. We have a team of 50 chemists and engineers and designers, and we still need to fine-tune a lot of those kind of like solutions. So sometimes it is easier to work with like a larger company to really make sure that we are kind of like getting things progressing. But certainly our takeaway boxes are used by like a lot of independent restaurants that can order them directly from our website. And we're really excited about those people who have, like the opportunity at their own scale to make the best choice they can for the products that they put on the market, and also to kind of like support innovation towards a new kind of solution.
And does all these new ideas with the takeout stuff, does it coincide with the pandemic? Because since the pandemic, we're all ordering more and more.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these kind of like interesting things. And actually, one of the things that we did as a company quite early on is really believe in this idea of creating multiple products. And that's this model of anti-fragility. Like if something changes in the world, all of your assumptions being in one basket, you are kind of like terribly fragile. Whereas if you have like a few kind of like bets in parallel, you're able to adapt a lot better. So we had started to work on like this coating for a while, and obviously like for the couple of years where there weren't too many marathons and festivals, that was a great opportunity to get the chemists and the engineers to really work on how to industrialize the takeaway packaging, but we also kind of like used the opportunity to start developing some other products like a seaweed paper and a heat sealable film and a number of like different exciting kind of like new solutions that may not be at the industrial stage that we are reaching with some of these products, but certainly are hopefully the next generation of Notpla solutions.
So Notpla makes coating, sachets, the Uhu capsules, source pipettes as well, I saw on your website. Which one of those was the most difficult to create? What have your scientists told you?
I think the reality is like all of them are hard, but we're kind of like figuring out a bit the playbook of taking those very kind of like innovative materials and formats that we can make in the lab and taking them all the way to industrial scale. So every time we are taking that journey, we are doing it a bit faster, a bit more efficient. So the hope is that we can kind of like build on that experience. Certainly, we've kind of like learned that developing materials and making machines, all of these are really hard take kind of like challenges. It's not for everyone. Certainly, it's kind of like taking some time. But luckily, we are backed by incredible investors that really kind of like believe in the long-term impact that we can have. We have a fantastic team that is always kind of like remaining positive whenever we have a failed trial or something doesn't arrive in time and we have to kind of like change our plans. It happens all the time, but this is what innovation is about. And I think that there's lots of reasons to be really excited about what we can do. Because at the end of the day, we are incredibly kind of like resourceful as humans. So when we really get kind of like the right setup for letting some of these innovations happen, we can be quite fast at deploying them.
You just mentioned there's some failures, some challenges. Could you tell us a little bit more about them? Because as every startup goes, you've had your ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, like definitely there's a lot of kind of like things that can go terribly wrong. I think one of the big challenge still, like you talked quite a bit with the guys about like cost, and I think cost is really a barrier to entry. I think we aspire to create a truly kind of like we want mass adoption, which means that we need to have affordability. And the thing is, we really aren't kind of like playing on an equal basis with plastic, because plastic doesn't take into account the real societal cost that it has. It just looks at like the cost of extracting it and making it, but that's it. And actually, like there's a lot more estimates now that like the true cost of plastic is about 10 times the market price of plastic. So we think that plastic is cheap and we use it everywhere because it kind of like is a good way of like keeping fat margins and so on. But really, we're just buying it on credit this generation now. We're paying like a deposit of 10% and we're leaving the bill of 90% for the generations to come. So we're really choosing the more expensive solutions, and we're not even kind of like realizing that. And I think that when you look at the new wave of like alternative materials, when you take into account in this material creation the entire life cycle and making sure that this thing is not going to create a long-lasting waste, you are just cheaper. It's just that like the market doesn't value that just now. So I think that this is the hard, cold kind of like reality of the market. The really exciting part about this is that I think there's been so much backlash from consumers on brands to call the bullshit and say we want better alternatives, that now the teams that are working on these like product development and marketing, they are constantly kind of like receiving this feedback. They have to do something about it, and the more we put pressure on them, the more they realize that actually they have to spend so much more money now on like Facebook clicks and Instagram campaigns to kind of like do damage control on their brand, when they could just spend that money in the better products in the first place. And when you look at these markets and these budgets in a slightly more agile way, you realize that actually it is a much more worthwhile investment to make a product that gets people excited and align with their values than to try to damage control at the end of the year with your kind of like social environmental report. So luckily, we see a lot of brands that are kind of like getting that and that are jumping in at the premium that we have when we are making things in like small runs, not very efficiently. It does cost a little bit more money, but in the end, they're growing faster than their competitors. They have to kind of like do less damage control. They're seen as like opinion leaders, and all of these things, they have a lot of value for them.
think that really is the key message of our session here today, is that the true cost of like unreusable plastics is actually way higher than what we actually think it is, and that the sustainable solutions might appear expensive, but actually aren't expensive. I think that is the key message from our panelists before and from Notpla as well. How about you personally? What's next on your radar with your projects?
So I think we're really excited about some of these products entering really growth phase. And that's a whole new set of kind of like challenges, entering different kind of like markets, and just making sure that we can make things in large quantity. It's one thing to kind of like make a couple of trials, and like it's really exciting to see it in like one stadium, but like we're competing with an industry that makes billions and billions of these units. And so there's still a lot of work to kind of like get that going. We also want to continue to invest in like research, because when you think about it, we are barely scratching the surface of what we can do with seaweed, and like I think that applies to so many other kind of like natural materials. Plastic has about 100 years kind of like head start on R&D compared to these natural materials. When you think of like, I used to work at L'Oreal as a packaging engineer, and like the level of complexity of packaging technologies, like plastic technologies, is just incredible, because we've spent hundreds of billions of dollars over like 100 years. We've had like the best brains in the world hired to kind of like crack this very viscous and toxic material into the ubiquitous kind of like transparent plastic films that we see everywhere in our supermarkets. And it's taken 100 years and a lot of money. So if we deploy some of that towards some of those natural materials, I think we are not even kind of like capable of imagining what we could be doing with those materials. So I think that's really exciting. And overall, I think that like, yeah, it's like also realizing that seaweed is not going to solve everything. You look at nature, it's full of diversity. It's incredibly kind of like localized solutions. Every fruit is kind of different, and our idea is that we can create lots of different fruits for lots of different brand owners, so that they make sense on a local kind of like place in one application, but it's not going to be like a one solution fits all. And I think, yeah, the solution to plastic is not plastic. It's really something that looks more like the natural environment in all its like diversity, but also without austerity. Like nature is very kind of like exotic and exciting, and there's so many kind of like diversity, and I think that we just need to copy that and do more of that.
It's true, there are endless possibilities for these alternative solutions. Just quickly, one last question for you. How can we as consumers help in this movement?
So I think definitely like calling brands on their kind of like lack of action is something that you would have asked me 8 years ago when we started, and I was like, man, I'm not sure that it's going to make a difference. But like on a daily basis, we are with like in calls with like brand owners, with like NPD departments, where they're like, this is our #1 problem. What can we do today together to help this become a reality? And the reason is that maybe like 20, 30 people tagged their kind of like ways, saying like, I hate this brand because they are like doing this, but I love the content, just kind of like sort it out. I think even the CEO of Universe said like, call us on our kind of like packaging issues, so that we do the right thing. And I think that's something that like really resonates now a lot with brands. And yeah, like we constantly kind of like have an opportunity to choose on our daily life the products that we want to see more of. So if you have a choice between 2 products, choose the one that you want to see more of. And I think that like that will continue to help companies like us kind of like slowly develop some of those solutions, and give a chance to a lot of other ones to develop their solutions as well.
All right, thank you so much, Pierre. We are ending on that positive note that consumers are looking more and more for alternative choices, and that industries are listening more and more to our collective demands, Notpla using existing ecosystems to make plastic a thing of the past. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you also to our previous speakers, Yuri, Enrica, Paul, and their innovations for giving, trash a second life. And of course, Hornain earlier from CITEO, who showed us how recycling remains a pillar of the circular economy. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.